kids had to start a business by the time they were 16. I mean, their own business, and they didn't have to keep it forever. Some of them sold it and paid for college, all that stuff. They had to see the options and some of the things God can do in business for your family, for the community, and those things. But now, as they grow up and they start having aspirations, they don't have to feel alone. How do I leverage my ability to make a relationship, not just with my daughter, but somebody she might be interested in? When I know the dial's turning, this could be long term, how do I move in? How do I start asking those questions of investment and being there for leaning on what's going on? And so that's really wonky and awkward, especially at 15, 16, say, hey, what are some of your biggest struggles? All right, so you can't be with my daughter anymore. Those things. Like, you got to tiptoe a little bit and just have a lot of faith that God is actually, especially if they don't have a father that's investing in them, God's actually pulling you in an opportunity of a lifetime that could last a lifetime. Yeah. And so you've got to kind of put your own feelings aside a little bit and say, hey, what's my best, at each season, my best way to invest and cultivate a great relationship of a dependency, trust, and a go-to, not just, oh, you're my wife or you're my girlfriend's dad who might kill me one day,
yeah, right,
because that's who you want to be. You want to be, the old stoic,
protector,
Yeah. And it's like, no, my daughter knows me as the stoic dad, but also as a really good friend and who's for her. So she might be saying that to her son, or to her boyfriend, say, my dad's this, but when he comes to me, I'm so not. So I want to compliment what she might be saying. Number one, I'm investing in her. I'm willing to invest in you. It might look different, but here I am, 15, 16, 17. And now I can also implement some of those things I didn't learn, in case you didn't learn them. You need to come ask me, and here's why. Not just you need to come ask me, but here's why. Here's the value in that. And so, so early on, it's like, okay, as soon as I saw it wasn't just a little, he's cute kind of thing. It was like, I'm talking more. I'm starting to contemplate more. And for us, their grandmother lives close, my mom, and kids usually reveal things to grandparents before parents, if they're close. Yeah. So my mom would tell me, oh, she's really getting serious with us. Okay. I need to move in a little more, not abruptly, just smoothly, sashay in and say, hey, look, it's time to start investing a little more and see where this goes. But also, because, your dad and you've been praying, I'm sure, for your daughter's spouses for a long, long time.
Yep.
So you're getting an idea, at least from your perspective and biblical perspective, what they should look like, the character traits, these kind of things. Why not be the one who can help invest in those things,
grow them,
and help grow them, right? Because then you got to be a part of it willingly, not demandingly, and now you do become a really good friend, because now the person they become is the very person they look to you and say, "You were a part of that. How do I thank you?" Yeah. Just love my daughter forever, Yes. So that's kind of how it's been. Yeah, I think it's a very intentional process too.
And it is like there's the person, and is the person right in the dating phase, but then there's the who could this person become, and giving yourself, like, you're making yourself accessible and desiring to see that future spouse grow into the person.
Yeah, we're investors, right? So even in the Christian realm, in the church, how many teenagers have people investing in them, pulling vision out of them, what you can become, not who you are right now? How many people are really getting that at 15, 16, 17? But we know that, and God might be moving somebody and say, hey, there's your chance. Now let's watch what they can become with some more investment.
Yep. On the flip side of this person might be wrong for my child, I wanted to jump to the topic of family identity. And just this idea of we know who we are. We know, and that even goes into vision, values, but just broadly, family identity. Some dads listening right now, like, that jumps into their heart and they're like, oh, I've got that. I've prayed into that a bunch. Some are like, I'm not even sure what that means to have a core, clear family identity. Can you explain from your perspective on just kind of, what does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of this, because I didn't have a lot of modeling growing up, has been shaping over years. So I could write a book now, 20 years ago, like, I don't have a clue either. So this is just a little encouragement. Yeah. If you're 30 or whatever, like, what does all that mean? Yeah, me too. Yeah. Me too. Yep. But if you're faithful and you're pressing and say, look, I'm going to learn from others, there are some things that make up our DNA as husband and wife, me and Holly, and how we believe strongly about things. And it's not just salvation in Jesus. That's the no-brainer, but it's some of the other things like multi-generational thinking. You know, we really do want to live in terms of we have a calling for that's towards God's kingdom, and it doesn't just include my life. It doesn't stop there. So all my decisions have to have those thought process. How is this going to affect my kids, my grandkids, and who they're becoming, right? Because most of us know that past maybe great-grand people aren't going to talk about you much more. They were just the picture on the wall and everything else. Yep. But who we are can go from generation to generation, and you have to nail that down, at least before they leave the house. But even after, if you're friends with them, you can still shape it like we are. We're still shaping that. And so for us, living as a calling towards building God's kingdom, not our kingdom. Yep. So if you bring someone in the house, it's just all them and us, and we're going to build our thing. I'm going to dissuade a little bit. Say that's not going to last.
It's going to be abrasive against that culture.
I want to come alongside you and show you there's, a more eternal perspective. What God's really, we call it daddy's business. What's God doing here on earth, not just what we want to do here on earth. But that also lends itself to some of the other great character traits of generosity and selflessness and investors. We just want to be investors of others centered. Boy, if you can show me a character trait of others centered early on, I know my grandkids are going to be great. I know my daughter's going to be great, because you're not all the me kingdom, the meology instead of the theology. And so, you got to nail some of those things down at 30. You might get one or two of those principles down. And at 40, you're like, I got a few more from my own bumps and bruises and tripping and bumping into things. By 50 and, by 60, you're like, I'm pretty rock solid. I wish I knew this back then, but at least let me pass it on. Yeah,
so you actually can, even that idea of sprinkling of, hey, in my 30s, I've got a few of the core things I know this is part of who we are as a Zog family, our identity, and be okay with it. We don't have all 6 of our clear, locked in for the next 4 decades. Right. You can actually add a couple more next decade, and a couple more, and seek that out. Who are we? Right. Not who does the world say we should be. What's going to be true about my family? Yeah. And that would encompass. What else would you add around that topic of family identity? Anything else that would come alongside that?
Well, when we do some of our marriage retreats and stuff, we have what we call the pillars of your family, And when you start talking about, in your 30s, that's their building years, What are you building? Not just physically, materially, but when you're building into your family. And so you're building a name. Decide what that name stands for. Not just for you, but in the community. When somebody say, hey, those are the Wehdes, those are the Zogs, what do they mean? Do they grit their teeth? Do they smile? But early on, you're able to say, hey, Dakota, Dylan says, Wehdes don't do that. And here's why. Not just Wehdes don't do that and they create bitterness. It's like, why don't we do that? Because there's lasting effects, not just for you, but for others around you and your community. And we're building a name in the community for God's sake. And so we don't want to be tarnishing those things. There's always forgiveness for mess ups. However, in the long run, you got to decide, are you a Wehde? Are you building with us? Or are you starting to tear things down? Yeah. So you start standing for certain things, or for us being business owners, entrepreneurs, that's one thing we want to do, is be building something in the community and partnering with God to do that. Yeah. So are you on board with that? Or is it always going, I got to build my thing, see you later. That's okay, I love you, but you're not consistent complimenting what God's put on our heart. Yeah. So,
wow. This was a quote that I discovered somewhere in my research, and I think I have this right. That you said this: if you want things to change, you have to change. Right. About personal transformation and sacrifice are going to come first. So if I'm seeing a family identity that I don't like, odds are it's not me turning a bunch of dials to get my daughters or my wife to change. Am I reading that right? Yeah. Like it's me first. Yeah. Yeah. Would you expound on that?
Yeah. Well, it hit me early on in our marriage. I think we had our first, Chelsea came, and then I started rethinking. I wanted to be the best husband, best dad, whatever. But your drive, whatever drives that, can come from one or two areas. Come from a negative history or negative impact, or a positive. Okay. And so for me, it was negative. I wanted to not be my dad. I wanted to be the husband my dad wasn't. And so negativity drove me, and that really didn't prove any identity at all. It only proved his out, which he's not anymore, but it's just like, and so it also is a bad way to model those things as a husband and dad. You're modeling not being something, instead of what you really want to be.
Yeah.
And so I had to turn that over, get over to God, say, okay, heavenly daddy, you show me. I want to now have a positive, compelling move forward to who I'm supposed to be. And I can't just now say, hey, you need to change. I have to start making the changes to become what he's asking me to be and how he's modeling that in the scriptures for me to be. But when you do that, especially as a leader of a home, you create the wake. You create that behind you, because who doesn't want to move forward with somebody that's making such positive impact, such positive change? You're like, wherever you're going, I'm going. Right? There might be resistance at first because you're like, oh, dad's on his thing or whatever. After a while, it's like, I want to be like that. I see what's happening, and then therefore then the marriage changes and everything else, because you're deciding I'm going to be this. This is my identity as a husband, as a dad, as a community leader, as a business leader. I get to decide between me and God, and he's shaping that. I get to decide. Therefore, I'm setting identity for me and then the family.
Yeah. My heart just like jumped to a quote. My 3-year-old said this the other day. She said, I think she said God told me. Maybe she said like it's an idea from God, but she said, my job is to help other 3-year-olds be awesome 3-year-olds. And so
that
truly,
is great.
yeah, I mean,
I
she took a quote from, she knows that's part of what I get to do at the ministry, Dad Awesome, is help dads be awesome dads. And I just love that she like spun it in her own, like, I want to be that for helping other 3-year-olds. And that draws me to this question around raising kids that want to stay tightly connected with your family. Like, I know this is true about your family. Your kids have chosen to move from other areas in the country. They've chosen to be to seek even employment in family businesses to some degree. In other, you got 5 kids, so not all the same way. But that's my prayer, is that not only my 3-year-old, but my 23-year-old might desire in the same way. Say, I actually want to be closer to the family, not go build my own thing.
Yeah.
What would you say is just like a guidance to help? So when my girls are 20 years older, they might want some, to go in that direction.
Yeah. We tease a lot and say, hey, if you want to keep your kids close, especially when they're having kids, buy an ice cream shop and a donut shop. And so we did. And now how do you move your kids away from ice cream? They'll hate you, right?
You nailed it.
But here's the thing. I really think your relationship will be different when they're older. Mine being 32 down to 20. The relationships are much different, and they should be. But when you imagine them in their 20s and 30s, what do you think is going to compel them to want to come be around you? And those are the things you got to put in. Are you useful, helpful, still an investor, but great listener, best friend? I'm not the instructor anymore. I'm not, and you start implementing those things early. For us, using business, I mean, we've owned, I think nearly 15 businesses in 30 some years, but being able to homeschool and have businesses that they can get involved in, they could watch us building something for God, not just for us, alternative income streams, side hustles. No. What can God do if we do this? Include them in it. And then we've talked about this before, actually have homeschool wrapped around it. All our kids had to start a business by the time they were 16. I mean, their own business. And, they didn't have to keep it forever. Some of them sold it and paid for college, all that stuff. They had to see the options and some of the things God can do in business for your family, for the community, and those things. But now, as they grow up and they start having aspirations, they don't have to feel alone. Yeah. Everybody knows we have Google. Google can give you a list and ChatGPT. But man, when I go sit down with Mom and hear the inspiration, and she's listening to me in my heart and my dream, and she pumps into that, and then she says, hey, we'd like to help you and partner with you in that. It's like, what? It's like, so I'm not saying, hey, we fund everything. I'm just saying, hey, when we're in this together, even if you decide, like, Ryan and Chelsea are doing their thing, and Dylan, he's got his own business, videographer, traveling the world. We just want to come around and just partner with and say, look, what's God doing in that? Isn't that amazing? You get to travel all over the place. This is great, And so, what makes them want to come back is it's not just such a safe place. It's a collaborative investing place, but they also help us too. So I know my youngest one day wants to own his own businesses, probably his own Swillerbees. He's thinking of up in Nashville or, whatever.
Amazing.
And he went and worked a lot of different jobs and said, you go experience all those things, be a plumber, be whatever. I got a lot of bumps and scrapes from all my jobs. But he said, I want to come back and learn how to do that. And this is the best place to do it because you guys are thriving in it and you believe in the right things. It's not just to get rich. It makes God's kingdom, richer. And so, so he's come back around and working with us. And so we can pour into him, invest in him, and then champion him when he goes and does his thing. Yeah. So we know that more will move away maybe, after a while. We get it. It's a big heartache. We have one moving next week, to San Francisco. It's a heartache, but it's so good to just be able to champion them and know they're going to do great and still be there.
Yeah.
Pouring in them.
You normalized that you're a family who builds things.
Yeah.
And what you've built, these businesses, one of them burned to the ground. It's not like it's been an easy up and to the right.
Right.
You're normalizing building, and you normalized that the reason you build is to pour out into the people that you employ, but also taking resources into funding ministry. Some of the things you've built have been global ministries, right? I love that. You also put a requirement of launch your own business. Don't just come be an employee. You have to launch by 16. Did I get that right?
16.
Can you give us
so
just
others
one
are
or
learning
two?
algebra too, so we're going to take a break. Let's go start a business. I don't care. Landscape. Chelsea, I think, was even 14. She started a fitness training, health training for women, for ladies, and she took them shopping, but they had to pick her up because she never liked
Exactly.
it.
So not capital intensive. She figured out a niche, an offering.
Yeah.
They had to provide the transportation, and she helped. What did she do? She helped. It was a shopping consultant.
Yeah, well, shopping, buy the right things, throw these things out of the pantry. Here's your exercise data, because she had already been training with me for a couple of years, and she's trying to, right their wrongs and their eating habits and their fitness. Yeah, but so there's the thing is, it doesn't have to be the next GE or whatever else. Find the niche, because and we're solving problems. So entrepreneurs solve problems. That's really all we do from early on. Try to get them to solve problems, because there's a lot of problems in the world, or a lot of needs, or a lot of desires you can solve. And so the big thing is, it doesn't have to be a success, because we failed. Yeah. If you know my story, we failed multiple. We failed in one just a year and a half ago, and pulled back, said, we just pivot quicker. Yep. But you teach them that early, because most people that come to us say, hey, I don't know about business, and what if I make a mistake? I'm like, my wife just ingrained in me, because I come from a family of long-term employment, pensions, all this, no business owners. Yeah. And but my wife's family, opposite, is like, failure paves your way to success. Over and over. It's like, we can risk it. We can fail. We can fail. Yeah. Because we'll pivot. We got these two hands, this noodle, and a big God. Let's go. So they were a part of the building, the business burning to the ground. They were part of some of the other failures, but they're also part of some of the successes, and watch us try to govern our praise to God and all that through the successes, failures, and everything else.
I also want to just kind of double click on the investing in. And so by being part of your family, and this I know extends beyond your family, because you've helped a lot of other young couples, young dads, help them start businesses as well. So it goes beyond, but your kids gain a kind of brain trust of all of your learnings from failures, all these different, so they're going to get that no matter where they are in the world. Or if they work, if they work on a family business or their own business, they get that. But then there's even the opportunity in some cases where you've said, actually, I want to bring resources alongside to be an investor in. I got that right? Yeah. What would you say, are there any other core, things that would be a benefit to being a part of your family or within your orbit that helps create that culture of entrepreneurism? Anything else you would add?
We have things we've done in homeschooling that now we even see our own kids doing with their kids,
with your grandkids,
early on, teaching them how to be problem solvers, teaching the power of the big concept, as we'd say, 30,000 square foot view. Even these coffee cups, somebody made this. You could be a maker of things. Our God's a creator. He's a maker. He's made us in his image. We're creators. We're makers. You ever think about that? No, mommy. But you bring some of those things into everyday life with intentionality. my wife, and rightly so, my kids are like, every moment it's a teaching moment, but she's a teacher. She loves to share the knowledge, share the experience. So early on, all the way up through even today, she'd be like, what are we going to learn from that? You know, but so much of society, I think, is caught in the trap. I think it's from the enemy. Spirit of complacency, comfort,
Yeah.
as long as, because life's hard and you got this much time, so don't, let's see if we can keep everything at bay. And
Yeah.
the goal seems to be to have as little as problems, conflict, and turmoil as possible. Therefore, we'll do this. And so with dads too, right? We've had a long, hard day. Man, would it be better if I could just click, watch that game, and
numb out.
give them something, give them a toy, give them an iPad or something else? That's the spirit of the enemy. It just distracts us from the greater calling that takes intentionality and work, right? And so I loved it. I love my wife, Holly. She's highly intentional and never would let moments pass by where I might be more passive and say, yeah, I'll model it, they'll catch it. I don't have to teach it. And I'm like, she would never let a moment pass by. Again, you have your negatives of those things. Can we just talk and get that too? But listen, I've learned so much from her about intentionality. Say, I just like anyone else can fall into spirit of complacency and comfort. And say, wasn't it a great day? Why was it a great day? I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah. Ease.
My kids are all just good. Playing over there. I don't know what they're playing with. It's like, that's kind of what the world does. Like, wow, how's that going to fare 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Not just in their work ethic and things like that, but how they're growing, being equipped, being invested in, and feel like they have confidence to go out and do something incredible for God, whatever that is.
Right.
But yeah, that starts at 3, 4, 5. Like you get on the floor and mess it up. And like, I had a long, hard day, but I can't miss this opportunity. And so I do think that's the fight that we dads especially face, because we, more often than not, are the ones out there doing the hard labor. I've dug ditches. I've, put in septic systems, come home. It's like, wow. And up north, it's cold. You've been in Minnesota. It's like,
Yep.
I just want to sit here by the fire, just kind of chill out with a good dinner. It's like, and that's the time the Spirit should kick in and say, that extra effort. And you will not get it right. You will not do perfect. You will probably quit before but you're making the effort. You're being intentional, and you're thinking through, what can I deposit right now that's going to grow into great fruit later?
It's good. It's good. There's lies. There's a whole stream of lies that dads are going to feel just whispered at.
Yeah.
One of them is, it's been a hard day. It's been a long day. This is me time, right? So that's one of them. Another one that I know you like focus in on is this cultural lie of that you are a failure, that you have not done enough, and that you can't do enough, and that just to try to get us dads thinking like, I've messed it up, or I'm a failure. Would you expound on that one a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't take long, right? You're not talking when your kids are 18. It's when they're 1 or 2, because when you first get your firstborn child is delivered to you, first of all, you think, what can I'm going to hurt this thing. Yep. You already start off in fear
mode, for sure.
And the enemy goes, oh, great, we have an open door. So by the first time you correct them, discipline, spank, whatever, it's like, oh, I'm a terrible dad. Or they're just trying to get your attention. Dad, what? It's like, I just snapped at I'm wrecking them. I'm just harming them. And early on, we're attacked by the enemy. You see, you're a failure. And even with the gender, they see, and mom's better than you anyway, because she has so much more patience. Whatever that is, it's like the enemy's always wedging in there. And as much as my kids say, you're the best dad ever, it's like, yeah, but I've got a list of regrets I can expound in a heartbeat because they're repeated to me constantly. Remember that time when, and I did that? They're just always in there. Great memories of regrets, right? And so you've just got to early on embrace that God's got the big picture. God really has these children, and children are so resilient and forgetful anyway. Yeah. I was talking to Dakota about this other day. He says, I just was really harsh with him. And just an hour later, he's run up to you, hugging the stuff out of him like I'm the best dad ever. I'm like, how is this? I'm like, God's grace, man. You embrace it, and that's the truth. You embrace that truth. Because as long as you're trying, as long as you're learning, okay, I won't do that again, and write it down, and don't do that again. God's like, I got love and grace all over this baby, because they're in a good home. They're in a nice home of faithful parents, praying parents, and also humble parents.
That's it.
I messed up.
I want to learn. I want to grow.
Yeah.
The fixed mindset versus growth. And that
Yeah.
is the growth mindset says the stumble,
Mm-hmm.
the moment of failure.
Yeah.
I am not a failure, but I've had moments of failure
Yeah.
within the last 3 hours. Right? I mean, so
Yeah.
yeah, the lies though, I have seen it just time and time again in my own life. You lead a fatherhood ministry, but you did this yesterday, and you did like it's
Yeah.
crazy how the enemy, Satan, wants to sideline from saying, no, this is my identity. Is I am a loving dad.
Right.
I am pursuing the hearts of my kid. I am. Versus this, no, you're a failure. You can't.
Yeah.
You haven't done all
He
this.
tries to get you quickly to give up. I mean, it's like, okay, well, I actually stunk all week long, and you know what? No more. And then so we just back off. That's her job.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be the provider because I'm obviously bad at that. And then you give up on intentionality, on the extra effort, on the conversations that happen. You know, not just the first question, how was your day conversations, you know, it's but why was, and what did you think about that? It's like, oh, I'm no good at that.
Yeah.
Mom's better at that. And you just disengage. And the enemy goes, oh, I love this because now we're going to repeat this cycle where she's like, you know what? I did a terrible job of conversations yesterday. I'm going to give it another shot. And God's like, oh, here we go. Because I'm going to unleash some great heart here. And you're going to go to bed thinking, I didn't even know. That was great. You know, I didn't know I could even be that kind of dad. You have those moments, and God says, hang on to those.
Yeah. So remember over and over, remember that was, we have to, but we don't. 90% we put ourselves in this camp.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
not true. We amplify the failures.
Yeah.
This was a couple years ago, so you might not remember the top 5, but I'll tee them up and let you just kind of riff on each of these 5 ways we can run the play. Running the plays for dads. So the first one you said is show affection. Can you just expound on affection?
So it's different for every child, obviously, because I have huggers and I have not so huggers, and I have one that we're best friends early on, but later on she turned out she's not a great hugger, not affectionate, so you have to love on them differently, right? She calls me the bag of ropes. I'm the old bodybuilder. Like, I think it's also say, because I don't know how to hug her anyway, so you're just a bag of ropes. Awesome stuff when you know your kids. You know, that's the big thing is, do you know them? Do you know them to be this? Or like the old love languages, are you always trying to push your love language onto them? Because it's not going to work.
In marriage, the same. I mess this up all the time.
Yeah, right? So do I. But that's the thing is, do you know them? And then how do you show the affection in the way they need it? Is it time well spent? Is it those things? And that's really key. When you tap into the way they need and you bridge that gap, it just knocks it out of the park. And they respond differently. I mean, some are like, might be tearful, and others like, thanks, Dad. That really meant a lot. It's like, take that as like gold. It's like they're actually a child expressing an emotion is gold. Not just, I'm mad at you, but really expressing his heart is gold. That's like, that's growth, that's relationship building, and that lasts into 20s and 30s, 40s because they did it early, and you made the effort early. So affection, is like I had very little affection growing up, but no dad, that kind of thing. I was very insecure, and therefore I wasn't a hugger for a long time. So if you're not careful, you just won't be that. And sometimes you have to say, this one's more affectionate in the area of hugging and touching and things like that. So you find yourself just touching their arm more when you talk to them and hugging them when they come in the door. I'm still not a hugger, but my son Dakota, 6'4", 275 pounds is, and he comes at me like a pterodactyl. He's like, oh, Dad. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not a hugger, man. You're kind of big. But he's like, he wants a hug.
Yeah.
And you know what? I do too after. So I'm like, yeah, that was great.
I love that.
30 years old, he wants to hug me. I should just fall into that. It's just, this is so great.
Yep. So the first one, show affection, but in the right ways, in the ways that they're wired.
Find out who they
designed.
are and how they need it, not just the way you want to give it. And then it'll last forever because you'll know it.
Yeah. The next one is live the gospel.
Here's the funniest thing. If my wife listens to this, I'll just ask for forgiveness later, but she'll get it because she's just an amazing Jesus follower. I've learned so much from her. But our kids generally will call us Old Testament, New Testament.
Okay.
And she's God the Father. I'm God. I'm Jesus.
Yes.
I just learned grace early, and I'm just and I'm a 2 on the Enneagram. I'm a server, so I tend to just love on you first, and then try to say something hard later. Where she's like, "I'm going to love on you by saying something hard," and thou shalt nots. And but as it worked out, it's a true sense of the gospel because when they're early, there is some Old Testament, there is some thou shalt nots.
There are.
but you can't carry that all the way up into adulthood, because then the Old Testament child becomes Pharisee. Yeah. And either doesn't becomes bitter, or becomes a legalist, and for the rest of her life become highly religious. And like, there's got to be that grace of the gospel that comes in. And so our kids have messed up plenty of times, as much as dad and mom have messed up, but there was never ever a sense that, you know what, you're always a Wehde. And even if they went to college and did this, that is, this door will always be open to you.
Yes.
And so when you feel that, it's like, you tell them that early on. It's like, you know what, you messed up so much, and I can't believe you did this. And we're pastors of churches. Sometimes they do things that are like, oh, but the church is going to like, you want to like this. Or like, you know what? But first of all, let's put the church over there. Let's put everything else over there. It says, here's how God is with us.
Yeah.
He's more hurt, not at the action, but the future ramifications and what it does to your life. And that's how Dad's hurting right now. You're actually going to endure some ramifications, or you've closed some doors of opportunity that God had for you, and that just breaks my heart. So put the shame and all that other stuff aside, because God, He's forgiven on the cross, and all the sins are forgiven on the cross. Tomorrow's sins, you name it. What breaks his heart is like, man, I had so much more that you just decided to give up. But the cool thing is, he still has so much more than you can ask or imagine. So let's go. I always said, you know, especially to my boys, I said, you know what? The moment you are thinking of sinning, clicking, doing that thing, I would ask him, what do you think Jesus is doing right then? Because he's here. You know, is he? Well, he's probably going, I can't believe you would do that. You would, nope.
That's not it.
You know what he's doing? Well, if you're going to do it, I got more stuff to do. That's already, just get it over with then. But you know what would be even better? Just come with me. Because when you feel that, like, he's not coming down on me with a hammer right now. He's like, would you see what I got for you? Why wouldn't you want to turn and just put that aside? He says, let's try to live like that. Because for the rest of your life, kids, you're gonna have these tempting things in different areas of your life. Every time, go, what do you have, Jesus? That's more.
It's always better.
And that's the better compelling force to saying no to sin and temptation, is the better thing that God has for you, not the judgment that might be coming.
I love that. The visual of like more of heaven, more of the kingdom, more closeness to Jesus versus the just you know, a little more sin, a little more, like, it's like so much, it's just,
well, we're always so small scale, right? It's like, if I don't sin, then I won't get a judgment, or if I don't do this, I won't go to jail for taxes, tax evasion, all these little things. Like, what if he really did mean life abundant? And what if you are faithful and turning from that, he gives you rich relationships? What if you are faithful from turning that and following him, he gives you not just a kids, it's just, or business that's thriving so you can be more generous? What if, you know, what if just small faithful things lead to great kingdom things right here in this life? But we don't measure it that way because we're such small thinkers. God's like, in God's economy, you know, it's huge.